This creature shoots glue out of its mouth.
Sticky enough to trap prey to the ground instantly.
It's not science fiction. It's a real worm species, and I just got my hands on 10 of them.
This species is incredibly difficult to find for sale anywhere. When I discovered a supplier with 10 in stock, I knew I had to get every single one. When the package arrived,
I genuinely wasn't sure what condition they'd be in after shipping. Opening it felt like a gamble. They had survived the trip.
10 strange, segmented creatures.
Each one looking like nothing else I'd ever kept before. Up close, the texture of their skin is unlike anything in the insect or worm world. Covered in thousands of tiny bumps. Almost velvet-like to the touch.
The moment I tried moving one with tweezers, it reacted instantly, twisting around and firing a stream of
sticky slime directly at the tool. This slime isn't just defensive.
In the wild, this same substance is how they capture every single meal they eat.
These creatures are native to humid rainforest floors in Central America,
hiding under logs and leaf litter during the day.
With 10 of them now in my care,
the first job was
building an enclosure that actually
matched their natural environment.
I started with the background,
using expanding foam to build natural-looking texture across the back
wall of the tank.
Once it cured, I covered the foam in
natural soil and bark to hide every trace of the artificial material underneath. Next came the substrate layer, starting
with clay balls at the bottom to
create proper drainage for the tank. A mesh screen goes
directly above the clay layer.
This lets water drain through while keeping soil from falling into the drainage zone.
This species needs constant high humidity to survive. Drying out even briefly can be fatal for them. To keep that drainage layer properly saturated,
I added a generous amount of purified water straight into the base of the tank.
With drainage and moisture sorted,
it was time to add the actual soil layer, where the worms would spend most of their time. I also buried a small handful of feeder insects beneath the surface, testing whether these worms could detect prey through scent alone. Next came the decorations, starting with a small rock cave, structure built using
wooden skewers as internal support. Stacking flat rocks across these supports created a natural archway the worms could crawl
beneath for shelter. A bit more foam secured everything in place, and once covered with soil and extra rocks,
the cave structure was complete. Live moss came next, adding color immediately, and setting up natural
growth that would eventually spread across the entire tank. For one final creative touch,
I used soft modeling clay to mimic the look of dried
slime trails across parts of the tank.
Once it air dried completely,
this material became safe and non-toxic.
Purely a visual detail to match the worm's natural behavior. A few live plants finished off the natural look,
adding texture and helping regulate humidity inside the enclosure.
With the tank fully built, the final step was supporting life forms before bringing in the worms themselves.
First, I added thousands of springtails into the soil, tiny organisms that help control mold growth in a high humidity environment like this one. Alongside the standard springtails,
I also added a batch of bright yellow ones,
a more colorful variety that serves the exact same cleanup purpose. Next came isopods, small detritivores,
that help keep the substrate clean by breaking
down waste and decaying material. These weren't ordinary isopods either, a specialty variety with distinctive yellow and orange coloring, prized among collectors for their unique appearance.
Both springtails and isopods form a
self-sustaining cleanup crew, keeping the tank healthy without
constant manual maintenance.
For one final addition, a fellow creator had sent over a sample of something equally strange.
A yellow organism known for
moving and feeding, without any nervous system at all. Within 30 minutes of placing it near a food source, it began spreading, slowly extending outward toward the nearest oat. Watching it merge with nearby
fragments and grow stronger was a reminder of just how
unusual this hobby can get. I placed this growing sample into the tank as well, curious whether
the worms would show any reaction to its presence.
With everything set up, it was finally time to move the worms into their new home, carefully, using a spoon instead of tweezers to avoid stressing them. Once released, they immediately
clustered together
in a tight group, a natural behavior for this species when first
introduced to new surroundings. Within minutes, a few of the more adventurous ones began branching off to explore their new environment independently. Most of the group were similar in size, but a couple were noticeably smaller.
Clearly much younger individuals from the same batch,
With everyone settled in,
it was finally time to study how these creatures actually hunt, starting with the smallest possible prey.
at first the smaller worm seemed only mildly
Curious about the fly nearby. No.
immediate reaction either way.
But reviewing the footage in slow motion
Revealed something
easy to miss in real time. A precise burst of slime fired directly at the fly. The fly was completely immobilized by the sticky strands, yet, surprisingly, the young worm made no attempt to actually approach and feed. This pattern repeated across.
multiple attempts, suggesting the smaller.
Juveniles simply found.
This prey too insignificant to bother pursuing.
Moving to a larger adult worm, I introduced something with significantly more substance. A waxworm roughly matching the
Predator's own size. This time, the response was immediate.
and decisive, a precise
Burst of slime locking the prey firmly in place.
inside their mouths. These worms have small, sharp structures specifically designed for tearing through prey efficiently once it's restrained. The waxworm struggled violently against the restraints, prompting the predator to fire an additional burst of slime for a stronger hold.
Once secured,
Feeding began in earnest, a slow but
methodical process of.
consuming the immobilized prey,
At certain points during feeding, fluid would seep from the prey.
which the worm would immediately draw in alongside the solid meal.
It was a genuinely effective hunting.
Display, proving why this slime mechanism makes such a small creature.
Surprisingly formidable. For the final test, the largest prey item, a live cricket.
Was introduced to one of the most active adult worms in the tank,
Initially, the worm seemed unbothered.
allowing the cricket to wander freely across its body without reacting at all. The moment the cricket made contact with the worm's head,
Everything changed instantly. Interest shifted into full predatory mode.
multiple bursts of slime shot out in rapid succession, anchoring the fast-moving cricket firmly to the ground before it could escape.
Crickets are fast and
Agile under normal circumstances.
this strong adhesive response was clearly necessary to prevent any chance of escape. With the prey fully secured,
The worm advanced and began feeding, working through the larger meal methodically. Surprisingly, after a couple of minutes, the worm abruptly stopped and retreated into the moss, leaving the cricket behind mid-meal. It seemed like feeding was finished entirely, until several minutes later, when the same worm re-emerged and returned directly to the same spot,
this behavior suggests these worms may pause mid-feeding to rest.
only to return and finish later once ready to continue.
After this successful test,
The same hunting process was repeated with the remaining adult worms, each one responding to crickets in a similar way. Every single adult
demonstrated the same precise.
slime shooting technique, confirming this hunting method as consistent.
Across the species,
With feeding tests complete, attention turned back to the yellow organism, placed inside the cave earlier, in the setup process. In the time since being introduced,
it had grown substantially.
and now covering a noticeably larger area than its original size, to see if there was any interaction at all. One of the worms was gently guided near this strange growing organism.
The worm showed mild curiosity, calmly moving along the edge of the organism, without any defensive or aggressive reaction.
Despite its strange appearance,
This organism poses no danger to other living creatures, making safe coexistence in the same enclosure possible.
while nothing dramatic happened during this interaction,
It was a genuinely interesting moment to witness two unusual
species share the same space. Now, let's talk about what makes
this slime mechanism so biologically
unique compared to anything else in the animal kingdom. This species belongs to a
group of ancient invertebrates.
that have remained virtually unchanged for
Hundreds of millions of years.
their slime is produced internally and stored under pressure, allowing it to be fired out instantly the moment prey is detected. Within seconds of contact with air, the slime hardens significantly, turning from a liquid stream into an effective restraint almost instantly.
This rapid hardening is exactly what makes escape nearly impossible for prey once contact has been made.
Interestingly, this same species can also regenerate its slime supply relatively quickly.
Allowing repeated hunting attempts within the same day. This efficient hunting system explains how such a small, slow-moving creature can successfully capture prey many times faster than itself. After observing this entire process firsthand, it's clear why this species earned such a striking reputation among exotic pet keepers. A few hours after the feeding tests, I did a check on the entire tank to see how everyone had settled into their new home. Most of the worms had tucked Themselves under the rock cave. Structure. Exactly the kind of sheltered, humid spot this species naturally seeks out.
The springtail and isopod cleanup crew were already hard at work, breaking down leftover food debris around the tank. This self-sustaining
Ecosystem approach means far less manual. Cleaning is required compared to a
standard enclosure setup.
checking on the moss a week later showed
Encouraging signs. Small green patches had
already started spreading across the soil. Within a month, this entire setup should be covered in lush greenery, making the tank look even more like its natural rainforest counterpart. The yellow organism in the cave continued expanding steadily, now covering nearly the entire surface it had originally been placed on. Watching something with no nervous system grow, move, and respond to its environment
remains one of the strangest things to
observe up close.
Meanwhile, the juvenile
Worms had grown noticeably since their arrival, proof that the humidity and care routine was working as intended.
even the smaller,
Individuals were beginning to show interest,
in larger prey, a sign they were
maturing into more confident hunters. This entire setup has turned into far more than just keeping one
strange creature. It's become a
genuinely functioning miniature ecosystem. If you're considering keeping a species like this yourself,
Here are the most important things I learned through this entire process.
first, humidity is non-negotiable. These worms can dry out and die within hours if moisture levels drop even slightly. Second, patience matters during feeding.
Not every worm will react immediately, and smaller individuals may simply ignore prey that's too small to bother with.
Third, a bioactive cleanup crew like springtails and isopods makes
Long-term maintenance significantly easier and healthier for the whole tank.
And fourth, gentle handling tools, like spoons reduce stress dramatically compared to tweezers.
Which often trigger unnecessary defensive slime spraying.
After everything observed in this experiment,
It's clear this species earns its strange reputation entirely through biology.
not exaggeration,
A creature with no venom, no speed, and no obvious defenses still manages to be one of.
the most effective hunters in its environment.
Let me know in the comments which moment.
Surprised you the most? The slime shooting hunt, or the strange yellow organism sharing the same tank? This won't be the last update on this tank either. There's still a lot more to learn as this ecosystem.
Continues developing over time.
If you want to follow along with how this tank grows and changes,
Make sure you're subscribed to WILDHATCH for future updates. To summarize this entire experiment, 10 unique worms, a fully built bioactive tank,
and 3 successful hunting tests proving exactly how this slime mechanism works. Thank you so much for watching this entire build and feeding process from start to finish. Let me know in the comments if there's another unusual species you'd like to see featured in a future tank.
Build like this one if you enjoyed this.
Hit subscribe for more nature experiments like this one. See you in the next video.